If you are a rising technology leader, or maybe you're already managing teams, but you're looking at that next big step, that executive role, I want to start with a question for you, challenging one. Think about this. If you had to pick just one thing, the single most critical factor for your team's success, and I mean more important than budget, more important than tech stack, what would it be? I'll give you a hint. It's not technical, not really. It's all about your people leadership, the culture you build. So this deep dive, we're digging into how strategic CIOs, the really effective ones, make that shift. They stop just managing projects and servers,
Right.
and they start actively shaping exceptional teams, high-performing teams. It's about that core competency that honestly separates the good from the truly great technology leaders.
That's absolutely the core of it, isn't it? And we've got some excellent material to guide us today. We're drawing mainly from Chapter 12 of Strategic CIO Leadership by Dr. H.Schuessler. It's laser-focused on leading these high-performing IT teams. And we're also bringing in some crucial ideas on execution. Think OKRs from John Doerr, and some really insightful narrative stuff from The Adventures of an IT Leader. The main point we're exploring, the mandate for today's CIO, it's pretty clear. Success in modern IT doesn't matter if you're in banking, healthcare, aerospace, whatever. It isn't about one lone genius coder anymore. It's about teams that are highly functional, teams built on deep trust, and teams that are just relentlessly aligned on getting things done.
Okay, so our mission here is to pull out that practical blueprint. How do you actually cultivate that trust? How do you drive that relentless pursuit of excellence, foster real innovation? We want to give you the tools, the actionable stuff to shift your thinking from being a great technical manager
which is important.
to being that strategic organizational tech leader.
Exactly. So look, if you're aiming to level up your leadership game in tech, make sure you follow this deep dive series and maybe share it with someone you know who's getting ready for that C-suite jump. All right, let's dive in. Let's unpack this.
Okay, so where do we start? It has to be the foundation, right? Trust, safety. The sources we looked at are really clear on this. IT success today in this super interconnected world, it absolutely hinges on having these high-performing teams. And the defining features: deep trust, agility, being consistently excellent. This isn't like a nice to have. It's the baseline, the prerequisite for any kind of digital success, no matter the industry.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is that the CIO's job isn't just finding smart people. It's about creating the environment where those smart people can actually thrive. If you look at the research, whenever things go sideways in IT, big security breaches, system meltdowns, projects going off the rails, you can almost always trace it back.
Back to the team dynamics.
Exactly. Back to a breakdown in how the team works together. The real bottlenecks. They're usually team constraints, not the technology itself.
And probably the best lens for understanding why teams break down, those hidden performance killers, is Patrick Lencioni's model, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. It's that pyramid structure. And the big lesson for any leader, especially a CIO, is that if that bottom layer, the foundation, isn't solid, well, the whole thing just comes crashing down.
Right. The absolute bedrock, the first dysfunction, is the absence of trust. And without that basic trust, team members just can't be vulnerable with each other. Think about what vulnerability looks like in a high-stakes IT setting. It's admitting you're stuck on a complex problem during a critical design review.
Or raising your hand and saying, uh-oh, I think I might have introduced a bug in that last commit.
Precisely. And if people can't do that, if they can't admit mistakes or ask for help, especially with complex stuff like cloud migrations or cybersecurity defenses, what happens? They hide things.
They cover up problems.
Yeah. They conceal failing systems. They don't mention potential security gaps. They let technical debt pile up until it's way, way too late to fix easily.
Okay, so no trust. That leads directly to the next dysfunction, right? The fear of conflict.
That's it. If you don't trust people, you're certainly not going to stick your neck out and disagree with them, especially if they're senior or perceived as smarter.
So people start, just going along to get along?
Exactly. Lencioni calls it artificial harmony. Everyone's nodding politely in the meeting, maybe during a sprint review, even if they see a major flaw in the plan. Nobody wants to engage in that healthy, necessary debate, that constructive conflict you need to really pressure test ideas and make good decisions.
And that fake agreement, that artificial harmony, it kills commitment. That's the third dysfunction. Lack of commitment.
Makes sense. How can you really commit, like truly buy into a decision or a project deadline, if you never felt safe enough to voice your concerns or debate the alternatives properly in the first place?
So people are just kind of reserving judgment, mentally keeping that "I told you so" in their back pocket.
Absolutely. It creates this really weak consensus. People might nod, but they haven't really bought in.
Which, okay, makes it easy to slide right into number 4, avoidance of accountability.
Yep. Because if there wasn't real commitment, why would anyone feel comfortable calling out a teammate who's maybe dropping the ball or not following through?
Right. Why hold someone accountable for something they never really agreed to?
There's no shared ownership. So peer-to-peer accountability, it just evaporates.
And where does that leave us? The top of the pyramid. The CIO's ultimate headache. Inattention to results.
That's the killer. Without that accountability, without that shared commitment, what happens? People start focusing on their own stuff, their individual tasks, protecting their own little fiefdoms, maybe looking good personally.
Instead of focusing on the collective goals, the actual strategic results the organization needs.
Precisely. Team goals get pushed aside for individual priorities or departmental turf wars.
Okay, so that's the downward spiral. How does a strategic CIO stop it? How do they break that chain reaction? Lencioni gives us actionable steps, right?
Yes, two critical ones. First, to build that foundational trust, the leader must model vulnerability. And this isn't just, saying nice work occasionally.
Of course, than that.
Much more. It means the CIO, the leader, has to admit their own limitations sometimes. Share stories of things they learned from failures. Acknowledge when they got something wrong. That gives everyone else permission to be human, to be imperfect.
Okay, model vulnerability. What's the second action?
Second, to foster that healthy conflict, they need to set really clear ground rules for debate. Establish norms. A great example is the disagree and commit principle.
Explain that one.
It means you encourage vigorous debate during the decision-making process. Argue the points, challenge assumptions. But once a decision is made, everyone gets behind it, 100%. Even if it wasn't your preferred option, you commit to making it work. No passive resistance, no I told you so.
That focus on safety, allowing people to disagree and be vulnerable, it ties directly into psychological safety, doesn't it? That concept Google identified in Project Aristotle.
Exactly, it's the linchpin. When Google studied hundreds of their teams, trying to figure out what made the great ones great, it wasn't about where people sat physically, or even how smart individuals were.
It was how they interacted.
It was how they worked together. And the single biggest differentiator, the critical ingredient, was psychological safety.
And Amy Edmondson in The Fearless Organization really defined that clearly, right? It's that shared belief that it's okay to take interpersonal risks.
Yes, the ability to speak up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes without fear of being punished, humiliated, or embarrassed. Google found it predicted team effectiveness better than almost any other factor.
Edmondson's point about low safety is powerful too, that it makes teams hide critical information.
Absolutely critical. If safety is low, people will actively conceal problems. A project slipping, an integration failing, a security flaw they discovered. They keep quiet out of fear.
Because they're worried about the personal fallout.
Right. Conversely, high psychological safety normalizes what Edmondson calls learning behaviors. Things like admitting errors, asking for help, seeking feedback, experimenting. These things take effort, they feel risky.
Like just saying, hey, I need help with this, or I'm actually kind of lost on this part of the architecture.
Exactly. Leaders have to make it normal, even expected, to do that. Failures aren't for blaming. They're data. They're opportunities to learn and improve the process.
So give us some practical things leaders can do right now to build that safety.
Okay, 2 concrete actions from the sources. First, make sure everyone feels seen. Actively solicit input, especially from quieter team members. Ask genuine, open-ended questions like, what's your perspective on this? Or what potential issues do you see that maybe we're missing?
Really drawing people in.
Yes. And second, this is maybe the ultimate test of a leader's commitment to safety. Never shoot the messenger.
Ah, the classic mistake.
It's fatal to trust. If someone runs bad news, say, they report a critical system is about to fail, the immediate reaction has to be gratitude for the heads up, followed by collaborative problem solving. Not whose fault is this.
So the rule is, if you're not hearing any bad news, you should probably be worried.
You should be very worried.
Yeah.
It likely means your system is flawed and people are hiding problems because they don't feel safe bringing them to you. Complexity guarantees things go wrong. Silence means they're hidden.
We see this whole dynamic, safety, trust, accountability play out really well in that story, from the adventures of an IT leader with the CIO, Barton, and that star engineer, Tony.
Oh yeah, Tony. He's the classic 10X engineer. Brilliant, incredibly productive, solves the really hard problems.
But he causes a bug that gets into production.
Right, and his immediate reaction is to fire off this aggressive email blaming the QA analyst. totally deflecting, dismissing her work, minimizing his own mistake.
That's a huge red flag for the culture.
Massive. It directly attacks that foundation of trust and safety. And the book is really clear. You cannot let that stand, no matter how brilliant the individual is. Undermining safety is unacceptable.
So how did Barton handle it? It wasn't just about punishing Tony, was it?
No, that's the key. It was a coaching moment, a chance to reinforce the culture. He corrected Tony privately, making it clear that blaming wasn't okay and owning mistakes was the expectation. But then, crucially, he used the incident for organizational learning.
The post-mortem.
Exactly. Barton led a post-mortem, but here's the genius move. He explicitly focused it only on the process. What went wrong in the system? It turned out the deployment script was missing a proper rollback function.
So shifting focus from who messed up to what in the process failed.
Precisely. Instantly, the tension drops. Fear turns into analysis. People start talking about how to fix the system.
And then Barton did something else important, right? He modeled vulnerability himself.
Yes, this is the leadership masterstroke. In a later meeting about the bug fix, Barton says publicly, something like, reflecting on this, I realized I didn't adequately clarify the testing requirements for this deployment phase. That caused confusion. That's on me.
Wow. So the CIO takes responsibility for a systemic part of the failure?
Yeah. And that small act of owning it, that vulnerability from the top, it had a ripple effect. The team saw it, and they started mirroring it. Junior members felt safer speaking up earlier in later projects. It's a perfect illustration. The CIO's actions directly shape the culture of safety and trust for everyone. Even the stars have to live by it.
Okay, so we've built the house on a rock, right? That foundation of trust and safety is there. Now the focus shifts. It's not just about managing people's feelings. It's about getting stuff done, driving results.
Exactly. Which brings us to execution. And there's that great line from the sources, ideas are easy, execution is everything.
Love that.
Strategic CIOs need tools, real concrete tools to turn that vision, that strategy into action that you can actually measure and hold people accountable for.
And the go-to tool, proven everywhere from Silicon Valley outwards, is objectives and key results, OKRs.
Yeah, OKRs. John Doerr brought them to Google, having learned them from the legendary Andy Grove at Intel. They're designed specifically to be sharp, to cut through the fuzziness. Grove called them a vaccine against fuzzy thinking.
Okay, let's break it down simply for everyone listening. OKRs have two parts, right? The O and the KRs.
That's right. The objective O is the what. What do we want to achieve? It should be significant, something concrete, definitely action-oriented, and ideally it should be a bit inspirational, qualitative. It sets the direction.
And the key results, KRs, that's the HOW.
Exactly. The KRs track how we'll get to that objective. They have to be measurable. Yes. Specific, time-bound, aggressive, but still realistic.
And verifiable. That's the key, right? Marissa Mayer's quote.
Yeah, the classic. It's not a key result unless it has a number. KRs are like a pass-fail test. Did we hit this specific measurable benchmark, or didn't we? And here's the crucial link. If you achieve all the key results for an objective, you should, by definition, have achieved the objective itself. If you hit all your KRs and still miss the objective, your OKR was badly designed from the start.
Okay, so what's the first big advantage, the first superpower, as Doerr calls it, of using OKRs effectively?
Focus and commitment. This is huge. Good OKR discipline forces you to be ruthless about prioritizing. You simply cannot do everything.
So it forces hard choices.
Absolutely. The recommended practice is limiting yourself to maybe 3 to 5 objectives per cycle, maybe per quarter. And each objective should have no more than, say, 5 key results tied to it.
That scarcity sounds critical.
It is. A strategic CIO understands that delivering massive value often means saying no to a lot of things, even good ideas, to focus resources on the few truly critical priorities.
Yeah.
OKRs make those trade-offs explicit.
It clarifies what the IT organization is committing to, and maybe just as importantly, what it's not committing to right now.
Exactly. And that takes courage, right? The CIO often has to push back, even on important business partners who understandably want their project to be the top priority. OKRs provide the framework for those tough conversations.
But there are pitfalls here, right? Ways teams can mess up OKRs.
Oh, definitely. 2 big traps. The first is setting business-as-usual OKRs. These are goals the team would probably hit anyway, even without trying hard.
Like setting an objective for 99.9% uptime when you consistently average 99.99%.
Exactly. That's not stretching. That's just documenting the status quo. The second trap is setting timid aspirational OKRs. These are goals that feel safe. They only ask, What could we do with just a little bit more effort or luck?
Instead of asking the bigger question.
Right. The sources really push for bolder thinking. True aspirational OKRs ask, what should the world look like? What impact could we have if we weren't constrained by our current thinking? That's where real leadership comes in.
And there's a litmus test, too.
Yeah, a simple one. If you can score 100% on an OKR, but it delivered zero tangible benefit to end users or the business, it was probably a bad OKR. Launch the new platform isn't a great KR. Increase user adoption of the new platform by 50% in Q3. That's a key result.
Okay, focus is superpower one. What's the second?
Align and connect. Think of OKRs as the organizational glue. The statistics here are pretty stark. Often, only a tiny fraction of employees, maybe 7% in some studies, actually understand their company's strategy and how their work fits in.
Wow, 7%. That's low.
Shockingly low. And that lack of alignment. It's consistently ranked as the biggest barrier between having a strategy and actually executing it.
So how do OKRs fix that?
They help balance top-down direction with bottom-up engagement. Cascading goals purely from the top ensures everyone's pointed roughly in the same direction, focusing on the big company priorities.
But that can be too rigid, right, if everything is dictated from above.
Exactly. Pure top-down cascading kills agility. It demotivates people on the front lines who often have the best understanding of the real challenges and opportunities. It makes them feel like cogs in a machine.
So what's the alternative?
High-performing organizations, like Intuit, for example, found a sweet spot. They encourage teams and individuals to actually define about half of their own OKRs, obviously in discussion with their managers. This bottom-up contribution fosters incredible ownership and motivation. Precisely. Misaligned dependencies between teams are probably the #1 reason projects slip in IT. If product needs feature X, but engineering's OKRs are focused entirely on infrastructure Y, you've got a problem.
And OKR transparency makes that visible early?
Yes. It allows for what the sources call lateral connectivity. Care teams can see each other's priorities and align their KRs accordingly. Product can see engineering's goals, engineering can see marketing's goals, and they can have informed conversations before things go off track.
That MyFitnessPal example really drives this home, doesn't it? The chaos when alignment failed.
Oh yeah, it's a classic case. They were growing fast, different product managers were setting ambitious goals for new features, but the shared engineering team, they had their own vital objectives around stability and scaling the infrastructure.
So the engineers were caught in the middle, pulled in different directions.
Totally. Efficiency plummeted because they were constantly switching priorities based on who screamed loudest. Then they hit a wall trying to support a major marketing campaign to acquire users.
Because engineering hadn't scaled the back end.
Exactly. Engineering hadn't been formally looped in, hadn't set the necessary KRs to handle the load, the fix. A clear mandate. No team could move forward on an objective if dependent on teams hadn't explicitly agreed and set corresponding KRs in their own OKRs.
So alignment isn't just assumed, it has to be actively engineered through the OKR process.
You got it. Okay, last superpower. Stretch for amazing.
This is the BHAG territory, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals.
This is where OKRs move from just managing work to driving breakthrough performance. Andy Grove believed output is always higher when people are reaching for something just beyond their comfortable grasp.
So setting goals that are deliberately uncomfortable, maybe even seem impossible.
Yes, setting aspirational OKRs or stretch goals. It requires a culture where it's okay to aim high and potentially fall short publicly and transparently.
Okay, but let's talk reality. For a CIO reporting up to a CEO or a board, setting goals you expect to only hit 70% of the time, isn't that politically risky? Don't they just want committed numbers?
That's the leadership tightrope walk. The strategic CIO needs to be very clear in differentiating between two kinds of OKRs.
Committed versus aspirational.
Exactly. Committed OKRs are the things that absolutely must get done. Maintaining core system stability, hitting regulatory deadlines, delivering on critical customer promises. For these, 100% achievement is the expectation, and failure has significant consequences.
But aspirational OKRs are different.
Totally different. These are the moonshots. The goals aimed at disruptive innovation or step change improvements. For these, the target might genuinely be 60–70% achievement.
And hitting 100% is actually a bad sign.
It's a sign you aim too low. If a team consistently nails all their aspirational goals, the CIO's message needs to be, great work, but we need to stretch further next time. They're playing it safe, not driving the 10x thinking needed to lead the industry.
So the conversation with the CFO or CEO needs that nuance.
Yes, we are absolutely committed to delivering X, Y, and Z. On top of that, we are stretching for A and B, knowing that even hitting 70% on those will give us a huge competitive edge.
And we've seen this kind of 10x thinking change industries. Gmail is a prime example.
Unbelievable example. Competitors were offering maybe 4 megabytes of email storage. Google set an objective for something like a 500x increase, offering a full gigabyte. It basically made email storage anxiety disappear overnight.
And Google Chrome's V8 engine.
Same idea. Sundar Pichai and his team saw the web shifting to applications, and JavaScript speed was the bottleneck. The objective, make JavaScript 10x faster, a goal that seemed insane at the time.
But they did it.
They did it. And that engine was fundamental to Chrome's dominance and really changed how complex web apps could be built. That's the power of disciplined, audacious stretch goals.
Okay, so we have trust as the foundation. We have OKRs as the framework for execution. What's the third piece? How do CIOs make sure their teams keep getting better without getting bogged down in rigid processes? This sounds like that classic tension between sticking to the rules and being adaptable.
Exactly. It's the process rigidity versus adaptability debate. You see this a lot in large organizations, especially ones that are very risk-averse, maybe in finance or government contracting.
The thinking is, if we just follow the framework perfectly, ITIL for governance, Scrum for development, we won't make mistakes.
That's the allure. But the sources warn strongly against what they call framework fanaticism. That's when following the process steps becomes more important than achieving the actual outcome, the actual value.
Checking the box instead of delivering results.
Right. And that kind of rigid adherence, it can really stifle your best people, the high performers, who see opportunities to adapt the process to fit the unique situation.
So what do the best teams do instead? The ones led by truly strategic CIOs?
They practice principle-driven adaptability. They understand that no single framework, not ITIL, not Scrum, not Kanban, is a magic bullet for every situation, especially when you're dealing with complex safety-critical systems or highly unique business needs.
They blend frameworks.
They blend them, guided by principles. It's interesting, even the latest version of ITIL 4, reflects this shift. It places much more emphasis on guiding principles.
Like what?
Things like focus on value, start where you are, progress iteratively with feedback, collaborate and promote visibility. These principles actually align really well with Agile and DevOps thinking.
So a smart CIO doesn't just throw out ITIL.
No, not at all. They integrate it thoughtfully, flexibly.
Can you give a concrete example? How would that look in practice?
Sure. Let's take a healthcare IT team building a new patient scheduling portal. For the actual software development part, they're probably using Scrum. Short sprints, daily stand-ups, frequent demos to clinicians that make sense for rapid feedback and iteration.
Okay, standard Agile.
Right. But now they need to deploy that new portal into the live hospital environment. Lives could literally be at stake if something goes wrong.
So you can't just push code like a startup?
Absolutely not. So here, they integrate rigorous ITIL change management processes, detailed impact assessments, formal approvals from clinical governance boards, careful release scheduling to minimize disruption. Patient safety dictates a higher level of control.
So they're using Scrum for speed and development, but ITIL for safety and deployment.
Exactly. And they might even adapt their Scrum practices. Maybe the daily 15-minute stand-up doesn't work because key clinicians can only join 3 times a week. So they adjust. That's principle-driven adaptability, applying the right process rigor where the risk requires it, but staying nimble where possible.
And to really optimize that whole flow, from idea to deployment, there's value stream management.
Yes, VSM. Borrowed from lean manufacturing, it's a powerful tool for CIOs. You get the teams together to literally map out the entire end-to-end process of delivering value.
Like from the moment a feature is requested all the way until it's live and delivering value to the user?
Precisely. And you don't just map the time spent working on it, you map the waiting time. The time things spend sitting in queues, waiting for handoffs, waiting for approvals.
That sounds like it could reveal some uncomfortable truths.
It almost always does. A development team might map their process and find, wow, we can code a feature in 3 days, but then it sits waiting for security review for 2 solid weeks because that team is swamped.
Ah, the hidden bottlenecks between silos.
Exactly. VSM forces you to see the whole system. It shifts the focus from optimizing one team's speed, like how fast developers code, to optimizing the flow of value across the entire organization. High-performing teams use those insights to automate handoffs, parallelize tasks like testing, and just eliminate wasteful waiting time.
Okay, talking about flow and seamless operations. We have to touch on remote and hybrid teams. That's become a huge test for CIOs, right? Keeping teams cohesive and performing when they're not all in the same room.
Absolutely. It was the defining challenge for many over the past few years. There was that initial debate, is remote work as good as being in the office?
But the research, like Google's Project Aristotle again, seemed pretty clear.
It was. Co-location itself wasn't the magic ingredient. Psychological safety, clear goals, knowing your role, feeling like your work mattered. Those were the things that predicted success, much more than whether your desks were near each other.
So, leading remote or hybrid teams effectively comes back to culture.
Fundamentally, it's about trust, intentional communication, and deliberate inclusion, not about physical proximity.
So, effective CIOs in this environment, what are they focusing on?
They focus relentlessly on outcomes, not on monitoring keyboard activity or counting hours logged in online. They trust their people. They ensure the collaboration tools are robust and used well. They establish clear norms, maybe brief daily check-ins via chat, clear expectations for response times.
And inclusion is key, especially in hybrid settings.
Critically important. Making sure the voices of remote team members, maybe engineers supporting data centers far away, are heard just as clearly in planning meetings as the people physically in the conference room. You have to actively fight that in-room bias.
Okay, so we have adaptable processes. We're managing remote work. How do we ensure the team keeps improving, that continuous improvement piece?
The best teams are just relentless about getting better, as one source puts it. And leaders build this into the culture primarily through two things: encouraging experimentation and using blameless retrospectives.
Oh, blameless postmortems after an incident.
Exactly. We touched on this with the Barton Tony story. The blameless aspect is non-negotiable if you want psychological safety.
Because the focus has to be on the process, not the person.
Always. The questions are, what systemic factors allowed this mistake or failure to happen? What can we change in our tools, our processes, our training, our communication pathways to prevent it next time? It's never who messed up. This fosters a growth mindset, not a fear mindset.
And beyond retrospectives, how do CIOs promote ongoing learning?
Proactively. You can't just hope people learn. Strategic CIOs foster knowledge sharing across organizational boundaries. A great way is setting up things like communities of practice.
Like guilds.
Exactly. Maybe a data analytics guild, where all the data analysts from different business units get together regularly. Or a cloud engineering guild. They share best practices, discuss new tools, tackle common challenges. It breaks down silos and lifts the capability of the entire organization, preventing knowledge from getting trapped in one team.
All right, we've covered a lot. We've got the trust foundation, the OKR framework for execution, and the mindset and processes for continuous improvement and agility. What's the final piece of the puzzle? How do you sustain all this? Keep people accountable, growing, motivated.
This brings us to how we manage performance itself. And the big shift here is moving away from that old broken model, the annual performance review.
The one everyone dreads.
Exactly. It's often seen as bureaucratic, subjective, backward-looking, and frankly, demoralizing. Adobe's story is famous here. They calculated their annual review process took something like 80,000 manager hours every year.
Wow, 80,000 hours.
And worse, they saw a spike in good people quitting right after review season. They realized this process, often tied to forced rankings, was actively harming the culture of innovation and risk-taking they wanted to build. So they scrapped it.
So what takes its place? If not the annual review, then what?
Continuous performance management. And the framework gaining huge traction, tightly linked to OKRs, is CFRs. Conversations, feedback, and recognition.
CFRs. Okay, break that down.
Think of CFRs as the ongoing pulse that keeps the OKR system healthy and drives individual growth. And a really critical design principle, tying back to our earlier discussion about risk, is that CFRs should ideally be kept separate from compensation decisions.
Why is that separation so important?
Because it's incredibly hard for an employee to be truly honest, to be vulnerable about challenges or failures, if they know every word is being weighed for their next raise or bonus. You want CFRs to be about development and improvement. Compensation discussions are separate, based more on overall performance, market rates, role scope, etc.
Okay, makes sense. Let's look at the components. Start with C, conversations.
These are those regular, frequent one-on-one check-ins. Andy Grove at Intel was a huge proponent of these. But they're not just status updates.
They're more coaching sessions.
Exactly. The manager acts as a coach. The conversation should cover progress towards OKRs, yes, but also focus on problem solving, removing obstacles, providing real-time feedback, and discussing career development and growth.
The source material mentions using them to address those deeper, maybe unspoken issues.
Yes. It's the place to ask things like, how are you really feeling about your workload this quarter? Or, what's the biggest thing slowing you down right now that I might be able to help with? It's about coaching for improvement, not just evaluating past performance.
And the coaching needs to be forward-looking.
Absolutely. So instead of just saying you seemed hesitant in that meeting, a manager using a coaching approach might say, in that meeting yesterday, I noticed some hesitation around the design choice. Thinking ahead, how could you approach a similar situation next time to project more decisiveness? Maybe outline the top two options, but clearly state your recommendation and why. See the difference.
Yeah, it shifts from criticism to skill building. Okay, that's conversations. What about F feedback?
Feedback in the CFR model needs to be multi-directional, not just top-down, from manager to employee.
So peer-to-peer feedback is crucial.
Essential, especially for cross-functional teams, where peers often have the best visibility into each other's contributions and roadblocks. And the feedback itself needs to be timely and specific.
Not just good job on the presentation.
Right. That's nice, but useless for learning. Instead, hey, that presentation this morning was really effective. The way you used that customer story right at the beginning really grabbed everyone's attention, and closing with those 3 clear next steps was perfect.
Specificity makes it actionable. You know what to repeat.
Exactly. And making it multi-directional, encouraging team members to give constructive feedback to each other, and even upwards to leaders, breaks down old hierarchies and reinforces that shared accountability and trust we talked about. It enables peers to say, here's what I need from you to meet my KR, and what do you need from me?
Okay, conversations, feedback. Last is our recognition. This feels important, but maybe overlooked sometimes.
Hugely important and often underestimated. Recognition in this model needs to be frequent, timely, often peer-to-peer, and tied to specific contributions or demonstrated values.
So not just the annual Employee of the Year award.
Definitely not. Think of it as crowdsourcing appreciation. It's a powerful engagement tool. The JetBlue example is great. They implemented a system for peer-to-peer recognition based on company values, and employee satisfaction scores basically doubled.
Why is peer recognition so powerful?
Because it often comes from someone who directly saw the effort or impact. An engineer getting a quick thank you note on the company platform from a support tech for fixing a tricky bug that was causing customer pain. That can be incredibly motivating, often more so than a generic bonus that arrives months later. It reinforces the desired behaviors in real time.
Okay, so tying this all together, for you, the listener, the rising tech leader, what's the takeaway? How do you apply all this?
It comes down to becoming a skilled diagnostician. You need to look at your team's challenges through these lenses. Is morale low? Maybe it's an absence of trust issue, using Lencioni's model. Is everyone busy but working on conflicting priorities? That screams OKR alignment problem.
So you diagnose the root cause.
And then you prescribe the right treatment from this toolkit we've discussed. Low trust. You need to model vulnerability and maybe facilitate a trust-building exercise. Goals unclear. Implement disciplined OKRs and maybe a team charter. Process too slow or bureaucratic. Use value stream mapping. Implement blameless retrospectives.
So it's about actively using these frameworks, not just knowing about them, simulating what a strategic CIO does in practice.
Exactly. Diagnose the problem, apply the right framework or technique, measure the impact, and iterate. That's how you build and sustain high performance.
Wow. Okay. We have definitely covered a massive amount of ground in this deep dive, really laying out that leadership blueprint for building and guiding high-performing IT teams.
We really did. So just to quickly recap those 3 core pillars. First, we talked about the absolute foundation, that bedrock of psychological safety and trust. We used Lencioni's pyramid to spot the dysfunctions and looked at Edmondson's work on how leaders actively create safety by modeling vulnerability.
Right. Then we move to the operational framework, objectives and key results, or OKRs. We hit the key disciplines there, the need for sharp focus, the critical importance of alignment both top-down and laterally, and that challenging but vital practice of setting ambitious, aspirational stretch goals, aiming for that 70% zone.
And finally, we discussed the engine for continuous improvement and sustained performance, moving beyond old annual reviews to embrace continuous CFRs conversations, feedback, and recognition. And doing all this within a culture of principle-driven adaptability, smartly blending frameworks like ETL 4 and Agile, not being a slave to any single one.
Well, thank you for tuning in to this deep dive with us. If this detailed look at leadership strategy gave you some new ideas, maybe a new perspective on how IT leadership really drives business impact, please share it. Pass it along to a colleague or friend. And if you're serious about stepping up your leadership game, ready to lead the future of tech, definitely stick with us for the rest of the series.
Yeah, before we close, here's something for you to reflect on. Think honestly about your own team right now. Using Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions: absence of trust, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, inattention to results, which one feels like the biggest vulnerability, the weakest link in your team's dynamic today? And then think about this. What's one specific, maybe small act of vulnerability you could consciously model this week as a leader or even as a peer to begin strengthening that foundation of genuine trust?
Remember, technology drives change, but leadership drives impact. Keep learning, keep growing, and lead the future you want to create.